Number 10. Fusion. You know, I couldn't do a list about swapping superpowers without talking about the miracles of fusion. Whether it's from Steven Universe or Dragon Ball Z, fusion is the awesome premise of not so much swapping powers, but combining them to make you and your teammate stronger together. It's not so much swap as it is share, but like a power swap, it often gives us varying results, with some combined beings being stronger and some struggling to find their footing in battle. In Steven Universe, there is one way to fuse, and that is with a fusion dance. But in Dragon Ball Z, there are many different kinds of fusion and varying amounts of results that one can get from fusing. But there are also fusion dances. And who doesn't want to see Vegeta or Piccolo dance? You're welcome. Number 9. Batwoman and Batman. While these two superheroes don't really have superpowers, and both are similar to one another, they did have something very different going for them at the time of the swap. During the animated series Batman, the Brave and the Bold, Batwoman had become resentful of Batman after being unmasked by the Riddler and forced into vigilante retirement herself. This version of Batwoman is Katrina Moldoff, a wealthy heiress to the Moldoff circus, and a skilled acrobat and athlete, so maybe a little more flexible than Bruce. Also, FYI, not Bruce's cousin. She teamed up with a wizard who helped her to swap bodies with Batman so she could get revenge on the Riddler by killing him while in Batman's body. Gasp. However, her plot was foiled and she ended up arrested, though Batman decided to forgive Katrina, assuring her he'd be there for her when she got out of prison. Swapping powers with Batman would be hard because I feel like his greatest power is actually just his brain, which is usually the thing you keep when you do a swap, your mind. Number 8. Emma Frost and Storm. So before Emma Frost was a hero, she was a villain. And while she is a villain in this story, I'm gonna count her in this power swapping list, as she currently is much more hero than villain now in the Marvel Universe. In fact, her villainy was pretty short-lived in regards to how long she's been around for. In Uncanny X-Men Volume 1, Issue 151, she forcibly swapped bodies with X-Men member Storm. Emma enjoys this new body and the new powers that came with it, relishing in her control over the elements. Meanwhile, Storm struggled to get a handle on Emma's telepathy abilities. I wonder if this just goes to show that anything you can do, a telepath can likely do better. Provided, I guess, that they're in your body? They need to be in your body to have your powers, so. But then they'll do better than you. A million times better. Number 7. Daredevil and Dr. Doom. So this story has kind of become one of my current obsessions. It takes place in Daredevil Volume 1, Issue 38, and it's hilarious! I know you might be thinking that Dr. Doom really isn't a hero, but although he's a villain in this story, he sometimes plays the role of hero in the comics. Not this one, but still. So I'm gonna choose to call him a hero this time, mostly so I can share this awesome comic with you. Basically, Dr. Doom wants to infiltrate the Fantastic Four, and decides to swap bodies with Daredevil to do it. He kidnaps Daredevil and places him in really weird traps in order to test him to see if he would be a good fit for the body swap. Daredevil passes with flying colors, and the two swap. Doom in Daredevil's body seems to enjoy his new abilities, and weirdly it does not seem to notice that he is in the body of a blind man. What? Daredevil in Doom's body manages to escape the prison he was originally trapped in because, you know, he looks and sounds just like Doom, so he can just be like, hey guards, let me out. And he threatens Doom by causing to harm Latveria by starting a war while in his body if Doom doesn't swap back. It's odd and fantastic and, well, you should really read it. Oh, and it's also written by Stan Lee. Of course, only Stan Lee would come up with this crazy idea. I miss Stan Lee. Oh no, I made myself sad. Number 6. Ultimate Spider-Man and Ultimate Wolverine. Oh man, this one was a strange one. So here's the story. To teach Wolverine a lesson because he's being too flirty, Jean Grey mind swaps him. She doesn't pick anyone specific, and it is Wolverine's dislike of Spider-Man that apparently somehow has him ending up swapping with Parker. The two basically go around mucking up one another's lives and trying to swap back. The weird thing is poor Peter is put through this for really no reason, and this seems like a fairly cruel move on Jean's part towards Logan. Like, maybe instead of forcing a body swap, try talking to your teammate first about his inappropriate behavior? I don't know. The creepiest thing is that you later find out that while they were swapped, Wolverine in Spidey's body tried to sleep with teenage MJ. Yikes. I mean, I'm not really surprised, but also, what? Number 5. Hulk and Thing. The Hulk and Thing realized that a battle of who is strongest needed a more scientific solution. So what do? Swap bodies. But wait a minute. Don't they essentially have the same powers? How is this swapping? They do have similar abilities, but they have one key difference when it comes to their powers: the restrictions attached to them. Whenever the Thing is fighting Hulk, he often actually holds back as he does not want to hurt the Hulk, who he knows is really just a good guy but who just can't control himself. Hulk, on the other hand, is restricted by his lack of control, as his strength often comes from his rage-fueled outbursts. The two swapping allowed them to escape their own restrictions and, in a sense, make for a fairer fight. I think we can all guess who's still stronger though. I think we all know. Do I need to say it? I don't need to say it. Number 4. All of the Guardians of the Galaxy, plus Pip. During the series Guardians of the Galaxy Mother Entropy, the team of Guardians end up swapping bodies when they are being tested by the Mother to see who is best suited to become a new mother that will give birth to a new type of universe. How ominous. One of the tests involves swapping everyone's bodies and dropping them into a bar fight. Pip the Troll and Drax end up swapped, Gamora and Rocket are swapped, so awkward I know, and Star-Lord and Groot also find themselves placed inside one another's bodies. The best is during the fight, everyone is so out of their element without any time to really get used to their new bodies and their powers that they all just kind of suck at fighting now. It's a riot. It's just a literal riot though. It's a riot. Number 3. Emma Frost and Iceman. Emma Frost was currently being treated at the X-Mansion by Iceman when the two were inexplicably hit by a bolt of energy. Mysterious energy. We later found out that this caused them to swap bodies. This was back before Emma was with the X-Men, and awaking in Bobby's body, she thought she had been held prisoner by them and just began to attack the X-Men. Unlike most power swaps so far, where people had to work to get the hang of them, Frost appears to be a natural. Is there anything Emma Frost can't do? I don't know. Why doesn't it surprise me that she would have a natural affinity for ice powers? Emma Frost. Later, when everything was resolved, her prowess with Bobby's powers proved useful, as she was also able to help him gain more control over them himself, proving to us once again how great of a teacher she really is. This was kind of the beginning of her becoming good, so yay. Number 2. Blonde Phantom and She-Hulk. She-Hulk and Wheezy ended up swapping after She-Hulk learned how to perform a mind swap from the Ovoids. They taught her by basically almost like a telekinetic brain surgery on her, which resulted in some psychedelic panels. Seriously, one of my favorite panels in comics is in there. It's great. She was looking to mind swap with Louise so she could inform the others on a spaceship sort of what was going on for her and her group. When her and the now reverted to middle-aged Blonde Phantom did swap, they ended up swapping builds and abilities, though their minds stayed in their own bodies. Jennifer actually had to convince Louise to swap back with her afterward, as Wheezy preferred to keep her She-Hulk strength and her tall, muscular build. But she was dating She-Hulk's dad at the time, who told her he actually preferred her the way that she was, prompting the two ladies to swap back. He probably also didn't fancy being in a relationship with someone who kinda had the exact same shape as his daughter. It's kinda weird. Maybe don't do that, right? He was like, not into it. Number 1. Spider-Gwen and X-23. Despite being from two different universes, these two ended up swapping powers and bodies. It all happened accidentally in the all-new Wolverine Annual issue number 1, when the Red Hornet thought she was targeting Logan and not the new Wolverine, and the two soon managed to meet up back in the main continuity and track down the Red Hornet and make her reverse the swap. But X-23 seemed to be better at using her new spider powers in comparison to Spider-Gwen, who was stuck in her body. During their fight against Red Hornet, Spider-Gwen actually accidentally stabbed herself in the head with her new claws. She's trying to fight like this. Bad idea. Thankfully she healed and was back up on her feet shortly. Keep those away from your face. Keep them away. Number 10. Peter Parker and Doc Ock. This one is for you, Nerd Squad. You asked for it and you get it. While Doc Ock is not really a hero in his own right, he does aim to become one after taking over Spider-Man's body. Spider-Man of course simply passes on as Doc Ock's body is dying, so this is kind of less of a swap, more of a become the hero. Take a body. Body taking. Body snatching. Although some of his subconscious seems to survive and even be able to influence Doc Ock despite the swap. Why does this swap happen? Well, Doc Ock doesn't want to die, but like Kraven before him, he is also looking to prove a point. Namely, that he is better than Spider-Man at, well, being Spider-Man. Hence the name, Superior Spider. He ends up brutally taking down those who would oppose him and even employs a bunch of spider bots to help keep the city safe. It's all for naught, however, as Green Goblin still manages to beat him, causing Otto to admit defeat and relinquish the body back to Peter Parker. Though fortunately we do still get an Otto Octavius Spider-Man. Again, later. Spoilers. Number 9. Superior Spider-Man and Doctor Strange. This one is more of an equipment swap, but a big part of a superhero's power makeup can be equipment. During a fight against Master Pandemonium in Superior Spider-Man Volume 2, Doctor Strange and Superior Spider team up. When discussing how best to take their foe down, Doctor Strange suggests brain surgery might be a good option to consider on their giant foe, to help sever the ties between him and his power. Otto adds that Strange is not the neurosurgeon he once was, and offers additional help for this seemingly ludicrous plan. Doctor Strange gives Otto his cloak of levitation, and Otto gives him his spider arms. Superior Spider-Man flies around while Doctor Strange uses the extra limbs to kind of help hold open Master Pandemonium's giant head as he performs the surgery, wandering further and further into his brain. It's not weird at all. Nope. Number 8. Rogue and Gambit. So we all know that Rogue is kind of the queen of power stealing, or a power borrowing. But did you know that at one point she was also the queen of power swapping? Or I'm maybe just the princess, as it was only one time. In the Rogue and Gambit miniseries, her and Remy are forced to destroy golems that resemble them in order to get their powers back after they've been stolen. Their powers end up getting a little bit mixed up during this time as they destroy each other's golems a couple of times, causing them to have some of each other's powers. Rogue even makes some gambling puns. It's pretty cute. Also, it's just a super cute series if you're a fan of the famous couple. You should read it. Rogue and Gambit, Ring of Fire, 1 through 5, miniseries. Number 7. Psylocke and Jean Grey. This power swap was a weird one, as it was never really fully explained as to why it happened. It just kinda happened. In truth, it was likely never revealed because the storyline it was a part of never got all the time it needed to unfold. Chris Claremont set up the X-Men where a lot of things had just happened and appeared to be going back to explain why and how, but did not get enough time to do so for Psylocke and Jean. So, all we knew now was that Jean was telepathic and Psylocke was telekinetic. Though over time the lines between these two different psychic abilities would blur to the point that Psylocke would eventually have both after her full potential was unlocked by an alternate Jean Grey. Originally it was like you can only be telekinetic or you can only be telepathic, and then later they were like screw it, everyone can be everything, it's fine, it's great. You have a strong mind, do whatever you want. Number 6. Spider-Man and Hulk. This wasn't a two-way swap, but it was a pretty cool one nonetheless. During a fight with Hulk, whom Peter basically ran into on an assignment, working to get photos of him, Spider-Man was zapped by a thingy. He actually calls it that in the comics, a thingy. This thingy ends up making Spider-Man feel super weird, and eventually after getting shouted at by his boss Jameson and his colleague Betty Leeds, Peter ends up getting mad and transforming into the Hulk. Turns out the thingy had given him a dose of the Hulk's bioenergy, which was the reason for his transformation. He eventually gets it back and ends up fixing his Hulk-like issues. But for at least one issue, we gotta enjoy the zaniness that was Spider-Hulk. Spider Smash! Number 5. Raven and Starfire. This is a really cute one that also involves some body swapping. In the early 2000s show Teen Titans, Starfire and Raven end up having their bodies swapped after the Puppet King tries to trap their souls inside puppets that resemble them. Fortunately, Raven is able to use her abilities to prevent this from happening. Unfortunately, this also results in Raven and Starfire accidentally having their bodies swapped. Initially, they're unable to use one another's abilities and are almost captured by the other Teen Titans, who are under the control of the Puppet King. However, they share with one another stories from their past in an attempt to better understand one another and how to use each other's powers. In the end, it is this newfound connection that allows them to access their powers and defeat the Puppet King, saving their teammates. Once they are back in their own bodies, they continue to work towards understanding one another better, with Starfire joining Raven for meditation and Raven inviting Starfire to visit the mall with her. So cute! I love these two together, they're so cute. BFFs for life. Number 4. Invisible Woman and Human Torch. During the Fantastic Four film Rise of the Silver Surfer from 2007, we saw these two swap powers. The film revolves around Sue and Reed's upcoming nuptials, which are interrupted by the destructive appearance of the Silver Surfer. The Human Torch chases after the Surfer and eventually winds up in the Earth's upper atmosphere before plummeting down to the ground. Coming in contact with the Silver Surfer left its mark on Johnny Storm, and Sue attempts to console him, but when she reaches out to pat his shoulder, it becomes evident that the Silver Surfer also affected Johnny on a molecular level. We learned that later, but anyways, I just like saying molecular level. Sue begins to ignite, her whole body now on fire, and when Johnny attempts to flame on to help her, he turns invisible. It seems the two have swapped powers, though Reed quickly shows up and encourages them to touch again to see if that fixes anything. And it does, cause science. Reed Richards, so smart, just being like, maybe just touch each other again. What a brilliant mind. Number 3. The Thing and Human Torch. That's right, back to the rise of the Silver Surfer. I couldn't mention Sue and Johnny and leave out the hilarious swap between Ben and Johnny. Reed surmises that the Silver Surfer's touch has done something to Johnny's molecular structure, and encourages him to simply keep a distance till he can figure out what specifically is causing Johnny to swap powers with those that he touches. But the Thing thinks it all sounds like a good bit of fun, and charges after Johnny for a hug. He successfully makes contact, happily enjoying Johnny's flame powers momentarily, while Johnny pouts at taking on the Thing's iconic rocky look. This whole playful swap just sums up their relationship in the comics nicely. They're like these kind of almost adoptive brothers, and they love teasing and poking fun at each other and pulling pranks. Super cute. One of the good things about that movie. Maybe the only thing. Who knows? Number 2. Superman and Batman. Sort of. As much as one can swap powers with Batman. I know y'all are gonna get mad at me. You're gonna be like, Batman doesn't have powers. He kind of has powers. He's Batman. Come on. He doesn't really have powers per se, as most of his powers come from his own sharp wits and years of training. In other words, they're all mental. But this little 4-parter story was too fun for me to leave it off of here, so here we go. After a run-in with Silver Banshee involving both Superman and Batman that left Bruce in pretty bad shape, Clark starts to lose his powers. First his X-ray vision, then his flying. Soon he is completely depowered. But where did all these powers go? It appears Batman now has them, though he isn't an expert at using them yet. He and Clark actually have a cute training montage, which is interrupted by Zatanna coming in to join them as she shares what she heard about Silver Banshee in an attempt to help get Clark his powers back. Oh my goodness. Also, superpowered Super Bat, as we call him, is just crazy. Oh my goodness. You would not want to run into him. Scary. Number 1. Power Pack. This group of siblings got their powers from a magical horse. Well, I mean, he wasn't a magical horse, but he certainly looked like a horse. Alfire Whitemane was in reality a Chimelian who crash landed close to their home. Alex, Julia, Jack, and Katie Power went to investigate and found the alien. He told them he had been shot down by an alien race known as the Snarks. He ended up imbuing the children with his powers, which they then split between them. During times of great duress or stress, they could actually swap their powers, though they often didn't have much control over exactly how they would get swapped around. They would also often change up their code names as a result of their power swapping.
Number 10. Lex Luthor and The Flash, Wally West. We're going to the DCAU for this number with the Justice League Unlimited episode The Great Brain Robbery. In it, Lex Luthor ends up having his mind transplanted into the Scarlet Speedsters, Wally West as mentioned, and vice versa. His great disappointment in being the Flash is that despite lifting the mask to see just who is underneath, he has no idea who it is. The Flash actually wreaks far more havoc in Lex's body than the other way around, sabotaging their heist from the inside out. It takes both teams way more time than it should to figure out that things are off. Number 9. Emperor Joker. Emperor Joker presents the world with a story wherein the Joker gets the full scale of powers from the 5th dimension. Specifically, Mr. Mixie's name I can't say no matter how many times I hear it, but it's fine. And everybody in the comments is like, it's said like this, it's super easy, why can't you do it? The Joker tricks the imp and then gets his powers. I guess the imp was too used to dealing with Superman. And even Superman regularly tricks him into saying his name backwards. This arc ran in Superman and Action Comics, and was a chance to change who the Clown Prince of Crime was normally pitted against. He didn't skimp on using his powers either, he used them to remake the entire universe, and especially to torture Batman. He made a world where Batman died every day and was resurrected, an experience that actually broke him. Superman took the memories and trauma onto himself for his friends so that he could function. Of course, Superman is able to save the day and return the powers back to their proper source. Number 8. Venom. This one is for the kids, an adventure of Spidey and Venom for all ages, or well, ages 12 and up. So Venom is no stranger to having Spidey's powers actually, but Eddie Brock sorta is. When Peter was the host of the Venom symbiote, it very much appreciated his power set and has replicated it with later hosts. Eddie Brock's Venom has a slightly similar costumed appearance and some of Spidey's abilities are replicated, but that's very different from just innately having them yourself, instead of a symbiote manifesting them. Really in this scenario, only Eddie would be thrown. Spidey and Venom symbiote? Been there, done that, had a whole arc written about it. Number 7. The Injustice League. The Injustice League is exactly what you think it is. A criminal organization while organizing in order to take down their arch nemesis collectively, all at once. In the Silver Age, they performed a great feat of body swapping as orchestrated by Agamemnon. He would swap the entire league and then use the heroes' bodies to go on a crime spree, which would leave the heroes, now in the villains' bodies, to have to stop them, which of course to outsiders just looked like villains attacking a group of heroes. The Green Lantern was able to reverse the effects by utilizing Oa's central power battery. How? Just go with it. The point is, it all worked out in the end. Number 6. Cassandra Nova. Cassandra Nova is a more recent villainous character who first appeared in New X-Men number 114, 2001. So Cassandra was conceived without a body, and copied the one of Charles. In fact, she copied his DNA to make her body, but he would end up causing her body to be stillborn after she tried to strangle him with an umbilical cord. So he hit her with a psychic blast. Cassandra would rebuild a body for herself, one that still looked like Charles, and she would orchestrate a plan that would not only result in genocide on Genosha, but also in her swapping bodies with Charles Xavier. Once there, she was able to use Charles' power set to contact the Shi'ar and Charles' ex-lover, and drive her insane, mobilizing the Shi'ar to wipe out mutants on Earth. It was a dark time, and she was eventually forced out of Xavier's body by Jean Grey. Number 5. Loki, Sorcerer Supreme. Yes, being the Sorcerer Supreme comes with some innate powers, not just cool ceremonial and functional jewelry. Loki ends up managing to finagle his way into becoming the next Sorcerer Supreme, away from Doctor Strange. He ends up becoming a vet and getting a ghost dog. In fact, Strange just loses all his powers, which means Loki gains them on top of what he already has. So you become the Sorcerer Supreme by winning a tournament. The best sorcerer wins. Loki's tenure as Sorcerer Supreme would be short-lived, and more of a chance to flex his muscles and shake up Strange's story than anything else. There's been a decent amount of that lately. Now he's gonna regain the use of his hands, cause, why not? Bring back the leopard print gloves. Number 4. Dr. Octopus and Spider-Man. Would it be a proper villain swap list if we didn't bring up the superior Spider-Man? Wherein Dr. Octavius swapped bodies with Peter, placing Peter's consciousness into his dying body and taking on Peter's youthful virile one. Also, I just used the word virile. Ew. Top 10 words Sasha should never say again. So Dr. Octopus would find that he could manage Peter's life better than him and would organize it. And he finds himself also, of course, being drawn towards more draconian methods, what with his spider bots and all. The other heroes take way too long to notice. It's disturbing. It's just like, oh, he went off the deep end. Seems legit. Peter's consciousness would eventually reassert itself, and Ock would find himself booted out, and he found that he couldn't give up being Spider-Man, addicted to the thrill. Number 3. Lionel Luthor and Clark Kent. We're talking about Smallville. It finally happened. Lionel Luthor and Clark Kent would swap bodies, which will allow Lionel to learn the full extent of Clark's abilities. This occurred fittingly enough in the episode entitled Transference, which was the 6th episode of the 4th season. Lionel goes full creeper in Clark's body too, and uses it to take advantage of his crush on Clark's mom, asking for hugs and the like. He's also really here for the new young physique he has. This is all the body swap tropes. Plus, he had no powers, and now he's proto-Superman. He's living his best life. However, this swap was good for Lionel's body as well, actually. He comes back and a lot of his body is healed. Smallville, aka people learning and then forgetting who Clark is. The show. Quality content. 10 seasons worth. Number 2. Emma Frost and Storm. Emma Frost stole Storm's body, and it was as creepy as you would imagine, because this wasn't one of those accidental transferences. This occurred in the Uncanny X-Men number 152 of the original run. There have been multiple runs with this name. Well, it actually started a few issues before, but it comes to a head here. Also, Shaw still maintained his relationship with her while she was in Storm's body, which he was super into it being newbie, and she kind of had to be sold. Fun times. We also get the line, I think Aurora would make an exquisite white queen. Storm is able to escape, and the two have an epic showdown in each other's bodies. It takes to the skies, it's a whole thing. It led Storm to hate Emma quite pointedly for a number of years, which honestly, justified. 100% justified. And number 1, Doctor Doom and the Purple Man. Number 1 has to go to a case of a villain taking another villain's powers. It's just so nefarious. Is there no honor amongst thieves? No. Not usually. Dr. Doom actually used the Purple Man and his abilities to take over the world. He really freaks Kilgrave out by being able to resist his persuasion abilities when Kilgrave tells him flat out to kill himself, and he just doesn't. Instead, he keeps him in a machine that amplifies his powers around the world so he can influence them to obey him. Also, did you know, there is a fan theory out there that Doom didn't defeat the Purple Man because he had willpower, but because he has no nose, and hence could not be affected by pheromones. What do you think? Are you here for that? Or are you just here for Doom, who cannot be tamed? Number 10. Ultron. Tony Stark versus Hank Pym. The MCU is no stranger to making the changes it sees fit to make sure its wonderful cinematic universe fits together. Yes, I said wonderful. Let me know how you feel about that in the comments below. And that means that sometimes comic canon needs to take a back seat because it would be too complicated or convoluted to implement. Case in point, Ultron. In the comics, Ultron is the creation of an at the time unstable Hank Pym, who much like the film turns into something his creator cannot actually control. Ultron ends up creating underlings and seeking to perfect himself. He is driven by his need to best his creator and also the Avengers. The Ultron of the MCU is pretty different. While yes, he is Ultron, appearing in the Avengers sequel film, Avengers Age of Ultron, here he is mauled off of Tony's brain patterns. At the time, also not the most stable because of his untreated PTSD that the MCU for a time thought was hilarious until it didn't. This Ultron's twisted vision sets him off against all the Avengers, even as his existence weakens the already tenuous bonds between them. One party scene does not a team make. Either way, whether he is taking on Tony Stark or Hank Pym, Ultron is definitely a force to be reckoned with. Number 9. The Flash. Rogues Gallery post Barry's death. Barry Allen, aka The Flash's death, during 1985's Crisis on Infinite Earths is at this point a famed occurrence, as he literally ran himself into non-existence. Now, while there was indeed always the potential he could come back based on how he died, many felt that it was permanent, especially with how concretely Wally West, aka Kid Flash, took over his mantle. One of the ways this was solidified was the transference of Barry's villains to Wally, plus of course an expansion. The Rogues would embrace and take on Wally in Barry's place. While beforehand, sure, Wally had tangled with them as Kid Flash, in more recent years he had been forming his own roster. He had become a prominent member of the Teen Titans and had his own foes. So when he assumed the mantle, he also assumed the villains, again with some variations. Hunter Zolomon, that was an arc. Never forget that he made Wally's wife miscarry their twins. Some villains just want to mess with your life. Robbing a bank isn't good enough for them. Not even close. Dark, dark stuff. Number 8. The Enchantress and Scarlet Witch. Ah, the Enchantress. A character you have to specify which company you're looking at because, well, she comes from both Marvel and DC. They both have one, and they're both female villains, and they both have something to do with magic. The Enchantress began her Marvel existence as a villain and quasi-love interest for Thor, although it was pretty one-sided. Amora, despite not being overly utilized, is one of Thor's greatest enemies, but over time she found herself branching out. When your enemy joins a team, it's only natural that you may find some other people on said team to torment. Amora would find herself getting into it with the Vision and Scarlet Witch, particularly the Scarlet Witch. This was back when Scarlet Witch and Vision had their own comic run that focused largely on establishing their relationship, which it did quite well, even though many of the writers who worked on it hated that relationship. In The Scarlet Witch, the Enchantress would find herself well matched, and they would both be on theme together. It was a case of a pairing that just for many made sense. Two magical, powerful ladies squaring off. The opposing yet complementary color schemes didn't hurt either. Those things matter, people, more than you think. It's subconscious. Number 7. Parallax. Let's deal with a swapped villain via retcon. And this is a fun one because it gets convoluted. And you know I love that. So the death of Superman, aka Kelly's totally favorite story of all time, graced the world with the death of Superman, obviously, but also with the destruction of Coast City. This occurred while Hal was not there to defend it, and it unbalanced him. This was because millions died, including members of his own family. So he slowly began abusing the power of his power ring, trying to recreate the city and, well, some of the people in it. And when he was called up for it, he snapped. He would kill the Guardians, kill the rest of the Corps, and become the villain known as Parallax. He would eventually die in the middle of a sun and then become the Spectre, or rather, the host for the Spectre. However, when Rebirth, the story, not the company-wide soft reboot, came, Hal would find himself fully returned to life, but uh-oh, he killed a lot of people. How are we supposed to read about him? Well, the solution? He was possessed by Parallax, a fear entity, so he gained an excuse and a villain. Huzzah! Parallax would go on to be a problem for many heroes, mostly so that it could be like, look, Hal actually did great by killing as few people as he did. Look at how quickly Superman succumbed. You know what I say to that? Nice try, Jen. So Parallax would tangle with Hal again, but would also move around the universe, the DC universe that is. The one really cool thing, they started drawing Parallax with extra rows of teeth like a shark, and that was pretty neat. Number 6, the Kingpin, Spider-Man versus Daredevil versus Captain America, but that last one only a little bit, mostly the first two. For a time, the Kingpin was heavily associated with Spider-Man. He was a Spidey villain, but over time, that would change. Though if you want him all Spidey all the time, you always have the 90s animated series. However, with the Frank Miller Daredevil run and beyond, Matt Murdock would also tangle with the Kingpin, to the point where some now associate the Kingpin more with him than with Spidey. For example, in the Netflix series, the villain of season 1 was the Kingpin. Spider-Man has such a large rogues gallery that he can take the loss, if that is indeed what this is. The Kingpin is also tangled with Captain America, as well sometimes writers aren't sure what level of crime Cap should be taking on, so sometimes he takes it to the streets. He was dealing with the Kingpin during that arc where he was on meth, ice, Good times. For the reader, not for Cap. Number 5, Archangel, Warren Worthington, with the wings of an angel. I have to say it, the 90s series ruined me. In my head, I'm saying it as Apocalypse as well. He was a founding member of the X-Men back in the 60s, but would find himself facing off against them. This was when, after the loss of his wings, he was turned into the Horseman of Death for Apocalypse. Archangel would eventually find himself in the role of anti-hero, and as a result would team up against Apocalypse, but he would still have some of the X-Men against him. He's fought members of pretty much every team he's been on, especially X-Factor. Sometimes he's the villain that his teammates fight, sometimes he's cured, sometimes he's disappointing his younger self. You have choices. Number 4, Loki and Doctor Strange. Now this duo just makes sense, doesn't it? Be it as foes or as an awkward team up, but it actually took a while to happen. Loki is fixated, let's use the word fixated, on Thor and Asgard. That's where he spends most of his energy. He will occasionally expand it out to the Avengers, but it usually has a take that Thor slant to it. However, then the MCU happened, and Loki skyrocketed in mainstream popularity, so his motif and appearance changed. With that came an arc where Loki became the Sorcerer Supreme, and Doctor Strange became a vet and got a dog, which Loki accidentally killed, but then returned to him as a ghost dog because he felt bad. The two would square off, and Loki would end up feeling, well, as I mentioned, pretty bad about the whole thing. But for many, they wondered, why doesn't this swap happen more often? Thor has branched out so much, it's Loki's turn. Although, I mean, he has that hipster Loki shirt now. Does he need to change more now that he's achieved meme/fashion icon status? Number 3, Mysterio and Daredevil. Mysterio was actually one of Spider-Man's earliest foes, and when you think of him, that being Mysterio, your mind follows it up with Spider-Man. But Mysterio has dabbled with other heroes. He's cheated on Spidey, and that was with Daredevil. What is it about Matt Murdock? Is he just that much better to torment? Do people think they have a better shot? Do they just want to go up against a hero with a better rep? So Mysterio can get pretty psychological with his plots. It's not all gimmicks and flash. So here, he killed Karen Page and framed Matt's best friend Foggy for the murder. Mysterio goes hard. This of course created an emotional layer to the proceedings that made it quite difficult for Daredevil to uncover Mysterio's illusions. This was definitely a memorable villain swap. Number 2, Emperor Joker. This story pit the Clown Prince of Crime against the Man of Steel, and found quite the creative way to even up the odds. This isn't the first time the Joker has gotten tired of failing against Batman and tried his hand with another hero. This time to even the odds, the Joker had managed to trick Mr. Mxyzptlk, which no one can say, so don't feel bad, except for you champs who can say it out there. He tricked him out of his powers, and as a result, he had all the power reserves of the 5th dimension, which means he was pretty much omnipotent. He could do anything. And he uses these powers to create his own topsy-turvy mad world that Superman has to navigate. Where is Batman? Well, he's out of commission. Batman can do a lot of things, but compete with someone who can will him to die every day and then be resurrected to do it again is not one of them, because yes, that's what the Joker does. Superman still manages to take down the Joker, which is always frustrating for the clown since he views Superman as so far beneath Batman. And finally, in at number 1, we have Batman and Superman, the movie, Joker and Lex. Swap. This is my favorite kind of swap, where two villains decide to torment each other's hero. Here we have Lex being approached by the Joker with a deal. The Joker will take down Superman for him, which ends up pitting Lex against Batman. This is such a fun dynamic, as you also have the heroes meeting each other for the first time in this universe, that being the DCAU, so the DC Animated Universe canon. They're also convinced that each of them knows better on how to handle the situation, which is also really fun. It's fun to see Superman completely underestimate the Joker, or Batman have to battle against a giant Lex bot. I'm a DCAU fangirl,